Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I like to discuss the Chancellor Jeremy Hunt's latest little problem with inflation as to keep in with as many pensioners as possible to prevent complete wipeout of the election. He's going to have to boost pensions. Now this presents a material problem for the tax cuts that he claims he won't be able to deliver next year, but he absolutely plans to deliver in order to buy more votes and calm his MPs down. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So on the face of it, the government's clumsy methods for reducing inflation seem counterproductive. They're doing it by effectively reducing people's disposable income. They are suppressing wages. They are driving up mortgages and rents. People seeing their standard of living going down like this are not cheered by Sunak and Hunt saying, oh, the inflation's coming down. He says, yeah, my personal inflation is not coming down though, is it? But I have long wondered if there's a different group of people in mind. So let us imagine someone who's retired and they own their own home. Okay, so suppressing wages doesn't harm them because their income is their pension. Increasing interest rates doesn't harm them because they don't pay rent or have a mortgage. In fact, they're quite likely to have savings, so it works out well for them. What this group of voters do care about, however, is inflation, because that's putting up the cost of things for them. CPI inflation is almost like it was designed for this group of home-owning retirees. And as this group of people vote in large numbers and tend to be quite happy to vote Conservative under the right circumstances, I could imagine that perhaps the Tories have these voters very much in mind with their self-destructive economic policies. I still think it's mad because they can't rely on these voters alone. They also need those with mortgages and jobs. But they may think they can win these other groups over if they just get through this winter and then deliver some token tax cuts next year. Certainly a lot of Tory MPs think that. However, it is looking increasingly unlikely that they will be able to. Jeremy Hunt has already warned that he's not likely to be able to cut taxes next year. Now, this is not what he really believes. This will not be what he's telling his own MPs privately. I can almost guarantee it. He's saying it so that when he does cut taxes next year, he can say he did such a good job with the economy that he was actually able to do it. Because the way it works is this. It's like, oh, we won't be able to cut taxes next year. Oh, no, it's far too... The economy is far too weak at the moment. No. And then next year, he'll cut the taxes and they'll go, oh, you said you couldn't cut taxes. Oh, yeah, but I was so amazing that I boosted the economy more than I thought I would, you see, so now I can afford them. Common political trick, except it will be genuinely difficult to be able to announce the tax cuts in next year's budget. The pre-election budget, he will have to cost the tax cuts. He can't get away with doing what Kwasi Kwarteng did. He can't just borrow for the cuts because the market will go loopy. So in order to announce any sort of tax cut next year, and they keep eyeing up a 2% income tax cut, which is about £15 billion, he's going to need to do, well, one of three things has got to happen, or at least one of these three things. First, the economy grows above expectations and probably quite a bit above expectations. Now, you can't rule it out, but you wouldn't bank on it when he's actively pursuing a policy that invites recession. Second, that he makes cuts to the budget of some government departments. Now, not only would this be incredibly difficult, given that 13 years of aggressive austerity has led to public services being cut to the bone, it would be deeply unpopular. Polls keep showing that even swing voters do not want public sector cuts in return for tax cuts. Also, if there were room for cuts, Sunak would have made them as Chancellor rather than be labelled as the Chancellor who introduced the highest rate of tax since the post-war rebuilding period. The third way would be rebalancing taxation. You could reduce income tax if you increased other forms of tax to compensate. But opponents would be quick to point out the sleight of hand. Also, the obvious source for this would be to remove tax breaks on the wealthy. Not only is this what Labour are proposing, but it's really not what the Tories are about, is it? So it's tricky. It's tricky to see how he's going to do it. And now we've got this news that because of inflation staying higher than expected, the state pension is likely to need boosting more than expected when Hunt arranged his last budget. This means that whatever Hunt's calculations have been for next year's budget, they're about to be out by another, well, several hundred millions of pounds, according to reports, because of the pension triple lock. something Sunak briefly tried to renege on as Chancellor until the political heat forced a U-turn. And it's a tricky little political problem for Sunak and Hunt, really. So Sunak's got a lot of MPs who feel that they need these tax cuts to win enough votes to retain their seats. Some MPs are absolutely fixated by this. The closer they get to the election without an announcement, the more jittery they get. Now, Sunak is already facing the potential for rebellion on several policy issues. He can't really afford jittery MPs worried about retaining their seats. See, these can be the worst sort of rebels in some cases, because they've got nothing to lose. They're not necessarily thinking rationally. If they think they're heading for defeat, nothing to lose. But as this and other articles points out, if Hunt announces his intention to cut taxes, it's not just a case of they can announce it to calm those MPs down and then maybe not do it. As soon as he announces it, he needs to say how he's going to pay for it, how the Treasury can afford it. Otherwise, you end up with exactly the same market reaction which greeted Kwasi Kwarteng when he did the same. Remember, when Kwasi Kwarteng gave that mini budget, it wasn't for something to be implemented straight away. Budgets don't get implemented until the following April. He was just announcing his intentions and the market still melted down. So Hunt can't do that. Until he can say I was going to pay for it, he can't do it. And every time the government have to spend more on something than they'd planned, it makes it harder to afford the tax cuts, which so many of them think is absolutely essential for them to win their seat in the election. The fact that they're wrong about this, by the way, is irrelevant. They believe it. This increase in state pension costs is one such example. And if there are Tory MPs demanding that the tax cut be announced in this autumn's budget statement, so that they can start plugging it, because they're thinking that some MPs are already campaigning hard, even though we don't know when the election's going to be, maybe next summer. But they're already campaigning because they're worried about their seats. They're out and about. And some of them will feel they need to be able to say, at the moment, all they can say is, I am really pushing for these tax cuts. They'd like to be able to say that they've got them in the bag. So they want an announcement this autumn. It's no good for them just a few weeks before the election. If they don't get it, be interesting to see what their reaction is. Because at the moment, Sunak's telling them to hold their nerve, just as he's been telling the public. But will they? But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.